Sure. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be going in depth on lore cards in the board game Arcs. It's important to note that this is not a how to play video, and it's instead a discussion about these special lore cards that are in the game. If you haven't yet learned how to play, check out the video on my channel. Without further ado, let's dive in. The first card that we have today is Ancient Holdings. Ancient Holdings is a very simple lore card. It lets you basically just hold an extra resource slot on itself, and its value is 4 keys. So, relatively simple, but very effective. Having an extra resource slot is always nice. In literally every case, every game, you're going to want more resource slots. And the fact that it's 4 keys is just so nice to have. Because normally the best you'll be getting is 3 key resource slots, which is very good. It's very hard to raid at crucial moments, but 4 keys is just even better. It means that, so on a raid die, on average, for every 3 ships you have, you're expected to roll 2 keys. So about 2/3 of a key per die you roll. And that means if you have this card, you're expected to need 9 ships. Oh wait, no. 6 ships to um, actually get the resource on Ancient Holdings. With with one battle, if you're using all of those ships to roll raid dice, taking all that damage, taking all that risk, and the action cost, only to take your one resource. So essentially, what that boils down to is no one is ever going to take the resource on Ancient Holdings unless they have a shipping interest or mining interest or something, or a silver tongues potentially, unless it's like a game-winning play. So because guild cards are almost always better to take, and there are no 4 key guild cards. So it is so absolutely difficult to take the resource off the slot, which basically means that, yeah, you have a super boosted resource slot. It's also nice because the resource slots open up by putting cities on the map are um, the order they go in. You have a 3, then a 1. That's what you have if you don't have any cities built. If you build another city, it opens up another 1 slot. If you build another city, it opens up a 2 slot. So already you have to have 2 cities down to just have another resource slot that's better than a 1 key. And then if you build another one, you open up another 1 and a 3 key. So you need to have 3 cities down, which is a good thing to do, but it's still very risky to do to just get 2, 3 resource slots. With this, you don't even need any cities down at all to have 2 very well defended resources. And that is what's crucial about this card. It's not the fact that it gives you an extra resource slot. It's not that it makes your resources hard to take. It's a combination of both. It's a huge benefit just throughout the game, and it really makes your life a lot easier. It'll let you focus on starports more. It'll let you uh, just hold more actions in the bank for later. And there is no leader that it really is bad with. Um, yeah, I can't think of one because every single leader enjoys having extra resource slots. Maybe it's slightly worse for the anarchists because they are going to scrap 2 cities and have more resource slots in general. But yeah, it really isn't bad for any leader. In terms of leaders, it's really good for. The Mystic and Agitator love it because the Mystic and Agitator, when they copy or pivot to attacks, they gain psionic or weapon respectively. And having extra resource slots to hold those extra resources are super nice. Because if you, say, have 1 city down and you already have 2 resources in your supply, either you have to waste 1 when you copy or pivot to tax, or just not use your ability. This will let you have the low city presence while also taking full use of those effects. The reason I didn't mention Fuel Drinker also lets you copy or pivot to gain an extra fuel in addition to the resource you're normally getting, is because Fuel Drinker is going to be burning through fuel a lot of times. Because if they are scoring Tycoon, their Lavish ability is going to make their fuel just be discarded. And if Tycoon is not scored, then they are going to probably just be spending it for actions to go and raid or go tax, just stuff they need to be winning other ambitions. So they're not a lot of times going to necessarily need to a huge stockpile of a given resource. So this card is slightly less good than it is for Mystic or Agitator. Mystic or Agitator, psionics and weapons are more crucial resources in the game, or not more crucial. Fuel is still very important, but psionics and weapons are the kind of resources you want to be banking up, and especially for Agitator because it um, affects their intercept hits that they're going to be doing. They really want a stockpile of resources that they can use for big effect later, rather than just spending them routinely. The next card that I have to talk about is the Secret Torpedoes. Now, Secret Torpedoes is a very strong offensive card that says when you battle, after rolling dice, you may reroll up to one assault die for each fresh loyal attacking ship. What that means is if you have three fresh ships and a one damage ship that are going in and attacking, and you roll four assault dice, you can reroll three of them. So this ability is huge. It's going to make your assaults like crazy strong sometimes, because assault dice are relatively good for dealing damage anyways. It has a 1 in 6 chance of rolling an intercept and a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a blank face. But you can reroll those, or you can reroll like the one hit, one self hit, to try to fish for those double hit rolls or those non-intercept rolls if you need to. Just getting huge damage. This ability basically comes down to the more you use it, the better it is. Because if you're able to take advantage of its effect oftentimes, then your rivals are really going to be struggling to outcompete you in Warlord, and to keep board presence on the map. The best way to kind of use this ability effectively is to um, just early game, either get a weapon or use an aggression card and just blow up your rivals' ships early on in the game. Just use this ability to crush them as soon as you can. It doesn't matter if you take a little bit of damage, as long as you make sure that the harm you're doing to them is much more impactful than the damage you're taking in return. Then throughout the game, you're going to want to keep on the pressure. Just make it so that your rivals, no matter how fast they try to build, because building is a very slow process, that you're able to come in and blow up their ships before they can even um, start building a fleet to contest you. This can be a very oppressive card if you use it right, but that's what it's designed for. It's not oppressive in a way that's game breaking or um, in a way that is not fun for the game. This is what the card is designed to do. So if you want to make full use of this card, you're going to need to take a very aggressive strategy and play aggressive throughout the whole game using your spare aggression actions. Maybe you're not going to secure that card in the court. Maybe you're not going to take that extra move that you need to uh, put down a city. You just need to like make a little bit of sacrifice to really keep your numbers and your presence on the board much stronger than your rivals. And if you do, that is where this card really shines. In terms of leaders, it's good for. The warrior loves it. The warrior, when they copy or pivot to battle, they can take an extra move, but they're going to be battling a lot because they can move and battle. So you can really use this card a lot more often, because even if you don't have a handful of aggression cards, you can copy or pivot to play an aggression card or copy it off of an aggression card, take a move and take a battle to use this card without having to spend your extra actions to move, because then it's just more assaults. Um, it's just, yeah, you get the point. Agitator, it's also quite nice for. Agitator is going to get a lot of weapons, so they have a lot of opportunities to battle, which again is making use of this card. It's letting them have more opportunities to re-roll those assault dice to get the powerful faces you want to see. The quartermaster also really likes it. The reason the quartermaster likes it is because even though you, as a quartermaster, you do mitigate some risk from assault dice because you can heal yourself after the battle, it still is really nice because you're going to be incentivized to battle a lot more, and you are even better at keeping your numbers up on the board. So quartermaster with secret torpedoes, if you're constantly going around battling, no one's going to stand a chance to you in the front of like having big fleets. You're just going to reign supreme the whole game, basically. In terms of leaders, it's bad for. First of all, obviously the Corsair. The Corsair can't collect more assault dice than skirmish dice in a battle. So if they have a fleet of 6 ships, well, they can only even roll 3 assault dice. So I guess you can make the assault dice you roll more useful, but still it's just not as good as if you could just go all in with assault. It's, it's just not effective because you can't actually use assault dice that often. It's also bad for the Rebel. The Rebel uh, does like rolling a lot of assault dice because they can go send 1 ship in to take a battle and roll 3 assault dice. But Secret Torpedoes, what makes it good is that you can re-roll assault dice up to the number of fresh loyal ships you have. And as a rebel, you typically aren't going to be taking battles with a lot of fresh loyal ships because you can only move 2 ships at a time. So you're going to be battling with 1 and 2 ships, but rarely more than that, though. So this card isn't as good because you aren't actually going to get to reroll as many dice, even though you do synergize with the assault dice battle action very well. Moving on to our third card for the day, we have Predictive Sensors. Now, Predictive Sensors is a lore card that's pretty interesting. It's very fun, very thematic. It's basically like you are um, you have foresight and you are predicting what your rivals are going to do, hence the name. It says, when defending in battle, before the attacker collects dice, you may move any number of fresh loyal ships from systems adjacent to the battle system into it. So what that means is, let's say someone attacks your ship in Gate 2, and you have 1 ship at each planet in Cluster 2, and they're all fresh. So attacker comes in, says, I'm going to battle you. You can send in those 3 ships, and suddenly you have 4. And maybe the attacker who is planning on rolling assault dice, they're like, oh, now an intercept is bad. So I can't roll assault dice anymore. I guess I get a skirmish. Or if someone's trying to raid your undefended building, you can send in your ships, and suddenly there is risk associated with rolling those raid dice. And they're like, oh shoot, I can't raid anymore without taking heavy damage. So it's good for those times where you can set up like your ships to be well spread out throughout the map, and just bunch together when you need it, rather than like consistently having large fleets on the board. So if you can play into it, it can be kind of nice to have. But the problem with this card is that is really niche. There are rarely cases where it's super bad for your opponent to like be attacking more ships. Because the problem with that is in arcs, battle so heavily favors the attacker, since the attacker chooses what dice to roll, and the dice that they do roll favors them. So if you are moving your ships into a system to defend your building or whatnot, it actually isn't a really good defense. There is no true way to defend an arcs. The only thing you can do is just hope your opponent doesn't attack you, because the threat of attacking you is higher than the reward they would get out of it. And rarely is that actually the case. So this card lets you be a little more flexible. Sure, you can come in and defend a building, but then your attacker just sees it and is like, oh, well, I haven't collected dice yet. Now that you have a bunch of ships here, I'm just going to roll a bunch of assault dice, and suddenly now I'm going to win Warlord rather than raiding your resource. And sure, I mean, like trade-offs are something you have to make, but this isn't a card that helps you enough often to justify taking it over another card in a lot of cases. But it also complements creativity well. So if you are a player that is really creative and good with positioning, then this is a card that you might really enjoy having, even if it's not the strongest option, because you can kind of set yourself up for these big kind of uh, think a couple moves ahead plays, or get yourself in a position where you can just trounce on another player because they tried to battle you. So in that respect, it can be very fun to use. A way that it's able to be used that's a little more niche, you wouldn't maybe expect that, is actually to position your ships. So this card lets you move ships into the battle system, but maybe your opponent's only attacking with one ship. They're kind of taking like a pot shot just because they had an extra action. So you can potentially use this card to bunch up your ships into a fleet that you can later use for better effect than if you had your ships spread out by themselves. So maybe you didn't try to spread your ships out, but they just naturally got spread out because you spread across a cluster to build some buildings. So you can move those together and assemble a fleet quite nicely, which can be cool if you use it well. In terms of leaders, it's good for the rebel is good. The rebel likes it very much because rebel they can only move two ships at a time. So you actually might sometimes get the chance to use this to position your ships, even though like obviously you're being attacked afterwards. So it's not a great way to position your ships, but you can use it in a pinch. In a similar vein, the anarchist likes this card. They are often going to be spread out just because that's their game plan. Spread out, get to a lot of cities that they can tax, and this can help them bunch up when the time is right to go off and raid. It's not very good for the agitator though. It's honestly just a pure negative for the agitator because a lot of times, sorry, let me explain what I mean. The agitator, they don't intercept based off of fresh ships in the system. They intercept based on weapon icons. So regardless of how many ships are in a system, intercepts are going to be the same. So if you use this card as the agitator, all you're doing is bringing more ships into this system and making it easier for your opponent to take out your ships because the threat of intercept is still there. So now you're just giving them extra targets with one battle. So it's a very bad card to use as agitator, unless of course you're positioning your ships. But like, how often are you going to actually get to position your ships? Maybe like once, twice a game, and it once, twice a game that'll actually be better than just not moving your ships into the system and keeping them spread out. So you really aren't going to want to be using this card. If you can get a good effect out of it, then great. But it's still just you'd rather basically having any other lore card than this. Finally, for today, we have Force Beams. Now, Force Beams is an absolutely hilarious lore card because it is a little different than what normally happens in the game. So it's a replacement move action called Guide that says move any number of any ships, even if not loyal, from a system with a fresh loyal starport to an adjacent system or vice versa, ignoring move modifiers. So, uh, like basically this sounds like, oh, I can take a move to a starport or away from it. I could already do that. But you can use any ships. You can move any ships, so even rival ships too. And that is what makes this card so hilarious because you can manipulate your opponent's pieces in ways that aren't common. So some of the best ways to use this card are building a starport next to an enemy building, then taking a guide action, dragging their ships from their building where they were defending it into your starport, and then suddenly you can move in and raid or ransack or something. Or maybe vice versa. Maybe your opponent is getting ready to battle you. They have like a weapon and they're going to copy, and you just zoop, send their ships right out of the system and they can't battle you anymore. And it's a hilarious card. It's a little niche because you are going to have a loyal starport next to where you want them to move, but it can be super funny if the situation presents itself. And I actually find that it's really a really good combo with Anarchist because Anarchist is going to be going around sneakily building starports while having like low uh, fleet supplies or uh, low number of ships in each fleet. So they're going to have like a lot of ships around the map. So they might have one next to your building and you're like, "Oh, surely that couldn't do any harm." Well, then you play a material, you play a fuel, and then you move into their city and battle it. And they're like, "What just happened?" Um, it really lets you um, kind of make these hilarious plays that um, maybe aren't the best in this situation, like in this scenario, but are things your rivals are not going to be expecting. And if your rivals are not expecting an outcome to happen, then it's better for you to take that action because the whole point of the game is getting ahead of your opponent and outthinking them. And this card lets you do it. So while it's not the best card, it can be really useful if a situation presents itself. In terms of leaders it's good with, the rebel quite likes it because they can just use those cities to drag ships in and uh, take those battles, or really get into undefended cities and starports more easily to take the raids because they roll 2 extra dice with each battle. So if you roll 4 raid dice, then you have a relatively good chance of destroying all your ships and not being able to spend keys if you attack with a defending, like if there's a fleet defending the buildings. But if you can drag those out and instead use your 4 raid dice and just not have to worry about your ships getting blown up, then it's super good because you can basically just raid safer. And the fuel drinker also really likes it because the fuel drinker is going to have a lot of fuel, and this is a move action. So the more fuel you can use, the more times you can use this ability and kind of like drag enemy ships in, move out to battle, or drag enemy ships in to battle and then leave to um, like evacuate so they can't hit you back. Or even better, drag them in, battle them, and then send their ships out. Just make them disperse. And then obviously the combo with Anarchist is pretty good. In terms of leaders that it's not as good with, the Mystic is not quite as good because you can't use fuel for this action. So it's a little harder to use in some scenarios because you have fuel outrage. And psionics, you can use that if there's an aggression or mobilization card played, but you aren't going to be wanting to spend your psionics for this action because to make force beams work, you can't really have only one action to work with. You need a lot of actions at your disposal, and you're not going to want to spend a lot of psionics, or in most cases, you aren't going to have a lot of psionics to actually do this action. One thing I did want to note before we stop talking about this card is that it has a super fun combo with gate ports. So gate ports lets you build starports in gates, and this lets you move enemy ships into starports or out of them. So unfortunately, it doesn't combo with gate ports. It doesn't let you like move enemy ships in and take a captive that way because force beams ignores move modifiers. But what it does let you do is send your opponent's ships across the map. So like let's say they're in a planet of cluster 1 and you have a gate port in gate 1 and gate 3. If you have a lot of moves, you could move them into gate 1, move them into gate 2, like out of your starport, move them into gate 3, like into your next starport, and then shove them into a planet in gate 3, and really just transport the enemy ships across the map. It's hilarious how you can do it. And in campaign, it works a little similarly. Like you can send your opponents into blight, um, or away from Empire control, or maybe you can send an Empire ship out of the system so you can battle. But it's just a really fun card that gets better the more creative you are, and that's what you like to see in a lore card. Just the opportunity to make a lot of fun plays. Moving on to the tier list I have for today. At the top of A tier, we have Seeker Torpedoes. Now, Seeker Torpedoes is obviously a fantastic card. Lets you take some huge battles, get a ton of value with your assault dice, and really just be an oppressive force on the board all the time. Ancient Holdings, I put them at the bottom of A tier. It's always a fantastic card. Um, it's going to let you do a lot of things um, by having those extra resources and having those resources that no one can take. Um, so it's just always a consistently good card, but it isn't as strong as some of the other ones that give you more concrete benefits, I guess. Like Secret Torpedoes, it's better because attacking is better than holding more resources in general. Force Beams, I put them at the bottom of B tier. Um, in all honesty, it's probably about the same as a Gate Ports or Repair Drones, but it's just slightly not as good because you really need to take time to set up if you're going to use this card well. Whereas Gate Ports and Repair Drones, they're kind of just they're more passive benefits in a way. Gate ports, you're generally going to already have ships in the gates. And repair drones, you're just going to be battling consistently. Force beams, you have to set up by putting starports next to the places you want to guide enemy ships. And predictive sensors, I put that in D tier. It is the first D tier card here. I might get some hate for this opinion, but predictive sensors is just really not a good card. There are some cool uses for it, and it can make fantastic plays given the right scenario. But the problem is you're never going to get consistent value from this. You have to spend a lot of time setting up to get those plays, and even when you do get a lot of time setting up, you're almost never going to get a ton of value out of this card that you wouldn't get from a different lore card. And for that reason, I put it in D tier. It just doesn't have enough functionality for what a lore card should be. All right, that ends it off for the video today. I hope after hearing the discussion on these 4 cards, you understand better how to use them and play with them in your games, maybe how to play around them because you know what your opponents want to do with them. If you like what you saw, stay tuned for future videos where I'm going to continue going down the list discussing these lore cards. But thank you for watching and have a good day.